Hello, everybody, and welcome back to yet another very exciting episode of the Friends Talking Fantasy podcast. My name is Charles, and with me today, as always, is my lifelong friend and co-host, Dylan.
I'm ready to talk some fantasy with my friends, Charles.
Yes, we say friends plural because we are joined with a very special guest. Isn't that right, Dylan?
That's exactly right. We are absolutely overjoyed to welcome Travis Baldree to Friends Talking Fantasy today. You probably all know this already, but Travis is a number one New York Times best-selling author, beloved for his breakout cozy fantasy work, Legends and Lattes, and its prequel, Bookshops and Bonedust. He's also the winner of the 2023 Astounding Award for Best New Writer, a finalist for the Hugo Award, and the voice behind hundreds of audiobooks, including Will White's awesome Cradle series. Before that, he made his mark as a game developer on games like Torchlight and Rebel Galaxy. Today, he joins us in anticipation of his upcoming release, Brigands and Breadknives, which is the much awaited sequel to Legends and Lattes, arriving November 11th, 2025. We have had the honor of being able to read arcs of Brigands and Breadknives, and we can attest that it's another fantastic installment in Travis's unique world. Travis, welcome to Friends Talking Fantasy. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure's all ours, you know. Dylan, I think this is the first time we have a number one New York Times bestseller on the show, right? And game de
we have dabbled in New York Times bestsellers, but this is our first number one New York Times bestseller.
Well, let's all lower our expectations.
which is,
That
a little
inter
bit in spirit of the books, right?
Yeah,
Lowering the
lower the
stakes a little bit,
expectations.
lower the expectations, but somehow that's where the magic is.
The magic in the mundane, as I'm sure we'll get to. So, Travis, though you are nothing but you are anything but mundane, I should say. So we are excited to chat with you. So
Oh, I'm excited to chat
we're
too.
what awesome. We're wanting to start with highlighting Brigands and Breadknives. I mean, we're fresh off reading it. I know I read my copy in pretty close to 24 hours. So you had me hooked pretty easily there. This book, it's a sequel in the Legends and Lattes world. It is the first one to go with a different point of view character. So this book takes Fern, who's a Ratkin bookseller that we got to know in Bookshops and Bonedust, but now puts her in the spotlight as our new POV. So first POV that you've had other than Viv, what made you want to bring Fern center stage for the main character of this book?
I think there's a couple of things. One, for a series that's ostensibly cozy, for me to
Hmm.
tell a sequel about Viv, she has to kind of stop being happy for a while. There has to be some sort of friction. I mean, they're cozy, but it still involves change and disruption, right? And like
Hmm.
she just finally got herself settled. It just feels cruel to uproot her again and send her off to do something else, or to find some way to disrupt that and add a friction to it. So I didn't really want to upset her tea table. And I, Fern just seemed more of an appropriate character to talk about what I wanted to talk about, which was just uh, these books always end up kind of feeling like whatever is going on in my life at any given
Mm.
time. And who is best laying around in the cast of characters to talk about that? And she happened to be a match. And I liked the idea of doing a book that is kind of the reverse of Legends and Lattes, taking somebody from something that's settled and discovering that that's not for them in a very messy way, as opposed to someone who's been
Mm.
doing something messy and is now bringing their life to order.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you put it that way. We were thinking about this because Fern is wrestling with this listlessness, this need to rediscover a sense of purpose and identity apart from her work, and we were wondering what drew you to that theme. And it sounds like that it has relevance to some of what you've been thinking through lately.
Well, the weird thing is that these books almost always accidentally end up being very meta for me. So,
Hmm.
with Bookshops and Bonedust, I tried several times to write a book and failed. And then from the wreckage of all of those books, I wrote a book. And it was a book about good things coming from the wreckage of mistakes that you have made.
Mm,
Um, and so there was something meta about it. And this book is, in a lot of ways, about disappointing people you care about to do something that is authentically what you need to do for yourself, and how painful that
Mm,
is, and how hard it is to convince yourself that that's the right thing to do.
mm,
And so I'm writing a book which a lot of people are probably either not going to like because it's not about opening up a
mm,
fantasy small business and
mhm,
having a happily ever after. It's about something else, but maybe that's what they were expecting. Um, and it's a character who is kind of messy and makes sort of some questionable decisions. And when she ultimately arrives at a decision at the end of the book, I fully expect a lot of people not to agree with it. But the
mm,
book is about doing something that other people don't agree with and being okay
mm.
with it. So,
mm.
um, again, it's kind of a weird meta thing that seems to accidentally happen where the thing I'm wrestling with ends up being the actual book.
That's that's so well said and interesting to hear too, because well, part of what we're thinking about with this meta aspect is that the book seems to start with a setup that is pretty similar to some of the places that you've been before, where it almost looks like we're going toward this cozy new shop setup, right? Fern is in town, and oh, we should start up a new bookshop, right?
Oh,
That's
yeah,
what
won't
she's
that be
used to
cute?
doing. But then we're like probably 5% or so into the book, and then the setup veers, or perhaps better put, stumbles into a more adventurous format. So I was wondering, was that like an intentional meta move that you were making there of like teasing the, oh, we're going to do the small business setup, and then no, we're
Yeah,
going
it
to a
was very
totally different
intentional. It was
place.
very intentional because it was set up at the end of Bookshops. I did it in the epilogue. I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be cute if Fern moved over and there's all these hints that maybe she'll set up shop next door and you'll have a bookstore next to a coffee shop. It's the
Mm.
dream. And there's this other like little rat guy and he's so adorable and everybody loves him. They would probably get along so well. And then
Yeah.
the
More
Yes.
first thing we're going to do is just
pastries, more
blow that
coffee.
up.
Yeah,
We're just
yeah.
immediately going to detonate it as quickly as humanly possible so that we can get on to other things. But yeah, it's just
Was there any
I
point, Travis, any pushback from anyone that you're working with to make such a
no,
departure? Because I can
no,
imagine,
no.
wow, I come out with this book. I really tapped into like something that people were craving, this cozy fantasy of this opening up a shop and everyone all touchy-feely hugging each other. And now I'm going to purposefully kind of subvert that. Was there any hesitation at all as you were writing it to put something like that out?
Not from my editors or anyone that I worked
That's
with.
also
Only on
awesome.
my part. I
Yeah.
remain worried about it because I do. I mean,
Hmm.
that's still like the struggle for me. Like, I care what other people think. I'm a people
Hmm.
pleaser. I care about
Hmm.
other people's opinions. I want them to be happy with me. But that's
Mm,
not necessarily terribly healthy for you or for the work you're doing, right? If you're only making something to make someone else happy, and to try and check off a list for some assumed reader or
Right.
listener or
Hmm.
player or whatever. Yeah, I feel like you're doomed to both be unhappy with it for yourself and
Sure.
unhappy with their reactions to it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean I don't still feel really, really anxious about it because I absolutely know that
Yeah.
it'll be divisive. It's just
Hmm.
maybe I'm just moving a circle on a Venn diagram somewhere else. That's how I justify it to myself, you
Sure.
know.
I mean, yeah, I can understand the nervousness because, this book doesn't come out for a couple more months, but I feel like for anyone who's coming into this, you still keep a lot of these, your style and these personal connections you have. Like there's still somehow, even though this is your most adventurous book in the series to date, you still capture a lot of the sentiment and the coziness
mm,
with your characters and the things that they're dealing with. So I would say to anyone who you like, it may seem divisive, but I think any fans of your work are going to see that connecting thread throughout. And I think it's really interesting that you're willing to kind of push the Venn diagram over and see how far you could, how much you could nudge it
Yeah.
to do something new and interesting. I always appreciate when authors make that move.
I mean, the characters are the same kind of characters, and it's the same kind of the world, and they're still effectively the same sort of focus, right?
Mm,
The characters are the same sort of people that they were in the other books,
mm,
effectively. The world is still the same world.
mm,
And the focus of the story, while there is more like peril and adventure and travel, it's still more or less focused on somebody's personal journey, like what's changing
Mhm.
in their life and what is hard about that, and where do they start and where do they end up. It's not about defeating an evil overlord, and it's not about
Mm.
saving a nation. It's still effectively personal stakes that just happen to be in a very, very different context. So in that respect, it's like the other books.
mm.
But
Totally.
I think people come to books, at different times in their lives for different reasons. There's a thing that
Mm,
they want.
mm,
And if your book is filled with a bunch of stuff, you're lucky if people catch one or two things that are relevant to them in that moment. And you just don't know which things are going to be relevant to anybody. I think, a lot of people want, I think with Legends and Lattes, they want this sort of like, calm assurance. There's a certain amount of like competence pouring to it. Here's somebody who
Mhm.
wants to do something and is methodical about it and acts like an adult and ultimately achieves it. And there's something like satisfying about that, right?
sure.
And we know people like that, and we often aspire to be that person and feel lucky if we are that person for a little while. And this
Sure.
book is about a different kind of person who is not. This is not a competence porn book. This is someone who is
Mm.
a hot mess, and sometimes we feel like a hot mess. If you relate to a hot mess right now, and a lot of us will, then this is going to feel like relevant to you. But if what you really want to do is to an escape to a world of competence, then this is not going to ring your bell, and
Mm,
it's just not maybe the right story at the right time for that
mm,
particular reader. And I don't know.
mm,
Um, I mean, a lot of times when I talk about stories, I talk about the fact that you're writing a message you're writing a letter, basically, to somebody. And you
Mm.
can write a really, really broad letter that applies to everybody, but it's not going to be a very interesting letter, right? It's just like, have a great day. The weather is wonderful here. The end. Everybody can read this letter and they can
Mhm.
all agree that the weather is wonderful, but it's not a compelling letter. Or you can write an ultra specific letter to one very specific person that in depth addresses something that's super relevant to them. But then there's a lot of other people who won't take anything away from this letter. Or you can try
mm,
and choose some middle ground where you're talking
Mhm.
about a few things and you cover a certain amount of ground, but hopefully it's still relevant to enough people that it doesn't feel like you're shouting into the void. Um,
mm.
but where
It's-
you where you direct the
Right.
shotgun blast of ideas that you are containing in that letter is still
Sure.
going to be ultimately, I mean, who knows where it's directed?
Sure. No, it's a good point. I mean, like, and it's so interesting. It's like people come to books for different reasons, and calling all the hot messes out there. And I mean, what a great show to be on to reach all the hot messes out there. Just gonna, you're in the right place. I
I'm a
mean,
hot mess.
you
Join
got
my
two
club.
right here. I was gonna
Yeah, another
say.
couple hot messes. We're all in good company here.
Absolutely. But I think, the attempt to make the books connect to people on personal levels is I think particularly what I find so fascinating about, Legends and Lattes and the subsequent books in your series is trying to find that personal thread that you're looking to connect with to that a vast amount of people can resonate with in a fantasy world. And I mean, what's more fantastical than opening a successful copy shop that everybody
Yeah.
loves? That's like the ultimate.
Yeah. It's just
I mean, dragons are
finding
one
friends
thing,
in your
but
40s and opening a successful business that
Yeah,
doesn't
it's
immediately
like,
fold within the
that's real
first year. It's
escapist
incredible.
fantasy.
It's
yeah,
the
that's
escapist
Friends in your
fantasy. Yes,
40s, come
exactly.
on. I mean, I can suspend disbelief with dragons
But
and
yeah,
like
wizards,
epic
magic.
quests, wizards, magic, whatever you want. But friends in your 40s is
I
one
know.
step too far, Travis.
It's
Yeah,
asking a lot.
it is heavy lift.
Yeah. Well, Travis, I was listening to you talk about some of these ideas of stakes in cozy fantasy and stakes being more on the personal side. I think in this book as well, even though it does get um, closer to that epic, adventurous
Life and
feel
death kind of
and
stuff. Yeah.
life and death a little bit more in the balance rather than business success or not business success. But I know that. when I first went to I went to listen to Legends and Lattes on audiobook on Spotify. When I first went to read that book. And by the way, fantastic narrator. I don't know where you found this guy, but he's great.
He's under a rock
So
around here somewhere.
so one thing I noticed is that on the Spotify title, it literally says Legends and Lattes, a novel of high fantasy and low stakes. And uh, I obviously I'd heard a lot about Legends and Lattes by that time, and I was like, okay, that sounds about right. But then after I read the book, I was kind of like, I felt like that sold it a little bit short, to be honest, because I don't think the stakes feel low to me. Like it's kind of this idea that you were talking about of like
Hmm.
them feeling more personal. And I was all ready to ask you this question, thinking we'd go somewhere you know maybe you hadn't before. But then I was listening to your other stuff, and I've heard you speak to this a little bit. I know there's a Spokane public radio show. You said this quote that I loved, so I'm gonna read back to you. None of us are going to slay a dragon, but we might move to a new town and we might have a tough time finding our people. That it's not meaningless just because it's mundane. You sprinkle a little fairy dust on it, and it's possible to think of it as more meaningful than we're accustomed to thinking of it. I was like, that's just beautiful, but I also want to hear more about how you think about this idea of stakes in cozy fantasy.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the first things I came up with was the high fantasy and low stakes slogan. I thought it sounded really good. And I thought, it's effective for getting people in the door, but they're
Yeah.
not low stakes. They're just local stakes. It's just not global stakes, right? It's
Mm.
personal stakes. And personal stakes are honestly the highest. They're like, am I happy
Hmm.
with my life? Is there apart from life and death, which I've got enough books with those stakes. What are the other highest stakes that you can imagine? It's like, are am I okay with how my life went? That's the biggest
Yeah.
question we all have.
Yeah.
Am I happy with how this is going? Is there
Yeah.
anything I could do about it? Should it be better than it is? Did I make terrible mistakes? Those are the biggest stakes personally. They're just not very large outside of ourselves or our, immediate family or community.
Yeah.
But I find it hard to relate to stakes that are outside of that scale because I'm not being threatened with death. I'm very fortunate. Nobody's trying to kill me right now. Um, so this is like the scale of stakes that I can relate to. This is what I
Mm.
care about day to day. This is what keeps me up at night or makes me anxious. So I find it a lot easier to connect to that and to get like some emotional feedback from whatever it is that I'm reading. I have a really tough time with things that are all stakes that I will never ever connect to. It feels just like CGI explosions to me now. I'm dead to it, right?
Right.
It doesn't matter. You could make the entire world blow up with CGI, but it doesn't feel like anything to me.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, because I know it's not real. I know that this is so fake to me. Um, and I think that there's plenty of books that can do both. They can have these
Sure.
enormous,
Yeah.
world level stakes, but they manage to marry it with human stakes that we can all care
Hmm.
about. And those are the big epic stories that I still get along with.
Hmm.
Um, but um, I think the other thing is that I read a lot. Like some of it is like a reaction to what people are saying you have to do in a book, right? You got to
Right.
raise the stakes. You got to raise the stakes, but it almost inevitably feels like it's this weird mechanical thing where they are just trying to introduce peril. Um,
Right.
and I'm like, that's not stakes. That's not stakes to me. That's not
Right.
interesting to me. So I kind of bridle at it a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, one of the things that people often say about like prequels, so Bookshops is a prequel,
Hmm.
Hmm.
and they're like, well, I don't care about that. Everybody's alive. I already know everybody survives,
Right. Right.
I'm like, but I don't care. I just watched Andor and it was some of the best, film
Hmm.
I've ever watched. I
Right.
know exactly what happens to these people, and it's not good, but it didn't make
Hmm.
any of the rest of the journey any less compelling because the things that we were dealing with at any given moment were interesting and felt relevant, and I cared
Totally.
about them.
Totally. Yeah, and that's a point when we were talking to Mark Lawrence, who wrote the Broken Empire trilogy and so many other
Hmm.
prolific works. He talked about the same thing. But he was talking about using time as a structure for plot device. And it's like, yeah, I'll go back in time, and just because the character is alive doesn't mean I can't also tell an interesting and exciting story. People don't care if we jump from one location to another, like in Game of Thrones, where all of a sudden I go from Westeros to the north to some desert. But if I go around in time, people start to think the stakes are
Yeah.
gone. And I think being able to tell a story beyond that, like, you know, Dylan, we were actually just talking about this over a drink the
Yes.
other day, and it was just like, if your character has to be in fear of death or die to make your story interesting, well, what book do you have?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You lose all of that connection. And I think one of the things that made Legends and Lattes particularly interesting for me, when I was surprised, was this whole side plot of, like, it's a D&D like world. The main character is this prolific warrior, and the whole time she's just trying not to commit any acts of violence. And how easy would it be for her to take the sword off the wall and go to the people trying to shake her down and put an end to it? And she's really struggling with the idea of putting that behind her and trying to just live peacefully, violence free in a D&D world where it just pops up all the time. And that's when we talk about stakes. That's where they come in, and that's where you connect with people, and you don't need to have big explosions, or you don't have to save the universe to achieve that really thought-provoking, interesting narrative.
And I guess this is all sort of amusing because here I am writing a book where like, why don't I add a little more peril?
Do it. Yeah,
Let's
no.
let's add a little bit more threat. So, brigands, all of a sudden, people can die and there's more combat and sword fighting and even nasty monsters than there are in anything in all the other books combined.
Yeah, right. For sure. But it doesn't, I mean, it's fun. That's why, it's entertaining, and it's a departure. It's something new. And I think that's what really makes it an interesting addition to the library of work that you've started to build in this universe.
Yeah, and the biggest stakes are still personal, I feel like, in Brigands and Breadknives, and that's why I expect that readers of the previous two books are still gonna connect because I mean, yes, there are other like bad guys, if you want, antagonists who are actual characters and there's life or death, but the big bad is ennui. And
Yeah.
that is
And
something I
shame,
think.
shame.
Yes, shame, ennui, and and I definitely connect to uh, these ideas of those being the stakes that we actually care about, even when we think we care about the epic battles. Like I think of someone like Abercrombie's work, Joe Abercrombie, and I feel like he has all of those epic battles, but he's very aware of well, the reason we might care who wins this is very grounded in the particular
Yeah.
people and what matters to them. And I feel like reading uh, Legends and Lattes, especially, but all of your work has kind of helped me realize that about myself as a
Mhm.
reader, that like it's not the epic battles, it's not all these kind of things. Like those are fun. Like I had a lot of fun reading Brigands and Breadknives and seeing these moments of like, oh wow, like Travis has battle writing chops here. Like that's pretty cool. Or at least like yeah, duels and chases. I'm like, this is fun. But at the end of the day, I'm still really focused on okay, like is Fern gonna find herself, her purpose, and resolve some of these things she's dealing with internally?
The number one thing I expect people to object to is that she left behind her dog
Oh, yeah. We didn't want to
without
go
making prior
there, you
arrangements,
know.
without making prior arrangements. Pot
Well,
roast is
she
fine.
knew.
Pot roast is fine, but yeah, she knew he would be taken care of, but still, I think there's just a whole it's a terrible mistake. It's a huge oversight. It's awful, she didn't set out to do it, but I expect that to be one of the biggest sticking points. What about her pet?
Gosh, yeah. I mean, God, you imagine you just have chapters of the poor pet just sitting by the
Yeah,
door
just
waiting
languishing,
for
being
just
overfed.
languishing. Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
Of course, I know what
definitely.
my dog would do if I was gone and then just there was a dog sitter for a month, and she'd be delighted. She'd be just like, yeah, they're gonna feed me extra. They're gonna feed me extra.
Exactly.
This is so good. I'm so happy with this.
Well, I think
Exactly.
your dog is fresh off a vaccination, if I remember correctly, Travis. So probably pretty
That's
mad
on
at you.
Friday. Yeah, it happens on
Oh, that's
Friday.
coming
Yeah, she'll
up.
be.
Okay.
She's old. She doesn't do anything. She lays on the couch and eats. She's got an easy life.
Oh, we could all be so lucky.
That cozy pet fantasy. That might be the next route there. Really hone in on the dog as the main character. Maybe a pot
They
roast
did
short
that.
story, maybe.
Isn't there that horror movie that's all from the dog's perspective that's about to come
I
out or
did hear
something?
about that recently. I forget what it's called, but people were telling me
Good
about
Boy
that.
or
I was
something
like,
like that. I don't know what it's
yes,
called, but I want to say it's something like that. Yeah, it's a horror movie, but it's just all the dog.
You do that, but it's cozy.
But it's
All
cozy.
right. You just
cozy
say,
horror.
yeah, guys,
How do you
something
pull that
popular,
one
but it's
off?
cozy. Yeah, cozy horror. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, I was thinking there's that movie. I'm pretty good with horror movies, but I'm like the one thing I can't take is the getting the pets involved. So I don't know. I don't know if I could
I
handle that
feel
one.
confident that this dog is going to be fine. I feel confident that it's just going to be the dog observing all of the things that happen to all of the other people. Because, you can't do away with the dog.
No,
It's not all right.
I
no,
hope
no.
so, but that's how they get you. You go in thinking that. So, Travis, something I've been thinking about going back to, I'm thinking about Legends and Lattes. I'm thinking about when you were uh, writing this. If I remember during the pandemic, you're writing
Yeah.
this and then you self-publish it, right?
Hmm.
Could you ever have imagined like that the cozy fantasy genre would take off in this way? Like, did you have
God,
any
no.
sense of
God,
like,
no. God, no. I just happened to be very much in the right place at the right time, and I had no idea that that place existed or that that time existed. So I can't claim any um, foresight, and I'm just feel like I just got very fortunate to be around with an easily recognizable alliterative name and a really good book cover and a book that basically sold the concept and
Right.
yeah, just good fortune.
though you've moved away from the very pure competence porn cozy, you are keeping the alliterative titles, which
We'll
are
have to
clearly
for
the
the
key to
Legends series.
success.
So all the Legends books will have to
Mm.
be alliterative, which is really challenging when you translate. This is not something I would have ever thought of. It certainly
Oh,
wasn't when
Hmm.
I wrote it, but translating alliterative titles is fraught. Um, Sometimes they just have to give up. And sometimes they get really creative and you're really surprised at what they came up with that worked. But
mm.
yeah, I wish I had thought of that earlier. I'm not sure if I would have uh changed the naming of the book, but I certainly would have thought about it a little bit harder.
That's
I wouldn't
wild.
even consider that, but it makes sense.
Well, then
I
you
mean,
think
it's
about things like you translate legends and lattes into Italian, and latte just means milk in Italian. So what are you going to do instead?
Legends and Milk. Yeah,
Legends and milk.
doesn't quite have the. It still sounds
Doesn't
pretty cozy. I don't know.
very different kind of book.
Yeah, exactly. Very different. I mean,
So
not even
then
doesn't
in
even have the caffeine in it.
every language it's in, there's a new alliterative title that you
They have
found?
to they have to try and come up with something and adapt something. And again, sometimes they just have to give up because there's just nothing
Yeah.
that's going to work that's going to be the essence of the book that they can do alliteratively, and they give up. But like I think in German, Legends Lattes is basically magic and milk foam, for
Oh,
instance.
okay.
Okay,
Nice.
I see
Um,
that.
Magie and Milchschaum, I think, or something like that. So they
Mm.
have sometimes they come up with a really clever way of doing it with
Hmm.
words that actually function, but sometimes it's not so easy.
That's fascinating.
So, Travis, going back to this idea of cozy fantasy taking off, that whole deal. So you end up going on to traditionally publish with
Hmm.
Tor, like suddenly we're seeing it everywhere in bookshops, the whole deal, and then there's this whole like cozy fantasy genre that like I feel like you're too humble to probably acknowledge the role that you've played in it, but that you've been a key figure in like a seminal figure in developing
Popularizing, yeah.
do you popularize I mean, it's been, there's other things you can find, but
Yeah,
this has been a huge thing in the wake of Legends and Lattes. Like, what do you think it is that during this time that makes cozy fantasy so popular, such an appealing uh, subgenre?
I think there's probably a couple things to it. I mean, one is I feel like a lot of what is appealing about cozy fantasy is that just sort of reminder about, hey, there's real value in your everyday life, and I I want to feel okay at the end of this. I love all the trappings of fantasy. I like these pieces, but I just also really want to feel okay right now. I want to watch the Great British Bake
Mm,
Off. I want to be all right. And the world is often scary and hard and kind of relentless. We live in a social media climate where you basically just drown if you open yourself up to it. And I
mm,
think it's hard for people to maintain their equilibrium and like a sense of like hopefulness, I think. So I think a lot of escapist fantasy, romantasy, cozy fantasy, it doesn't have to be those, but it's um, it's fiction that you can rely on to ultimately reaffirm something in you when you need some reaffirming.
Mm,
Um, and I think that right now it just happens to be a time where people crave that a lot. I
mm,
think that time has existed before, and I think there has been cozy fantasy before. I mean, I
sure.
think The Hobbit is basically cozy fantasy. He
Mm.
just
mm.
wants to go home and eat. He's passed out through the final battle. There's lots of singing and a whole lot of food. You know,
Yeah.
Redwall is almost cozy fantasy. It's super bloodthirsty, but in a really cozy way.
The
And
best
again,
kind.
lots and lots of food, talking animals. So I feel like all these things have existed, but I think right now, one, you can get more of a thing that you want. And when we codify it into a genre, it makes it easier to find. And I think the world just works that way now with digital publishing. People can find niches, and those niches can calcify really quickly. You get progression fantasy, you get lit RPG, you
Mm,
get cozy fantasy, you get
Mm,
romantasy. I think it's faster for these things to um, congeal into a genre than it used to be because it's
mm,
no longer gated by traditional publishing slowly opening the floodgates for a given a style of literature. It can just
mhm.
happen.
mm.
Um, and this just happens to be the one that formed around this sort of feeling or concept. And I think
Yeah.
I happen to be at a time where an easily rememberable alliterative title and a cover that you can point at and say, oh, yeah, that's cozy fantasy. I get that.
Yeah.
It's just very
Yeah.
easy to identify with it. So it's luckily for me, just really, really, it's closely associated with the genre. But
So, yeah.
I think it would have happened anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know what the poster child would have been, but I feel pretty confident it would have existed.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, so, since The Hobbit, people have gone to reading fantasy. The word you hear a lot is escapism and like, oh, I just can
Mm,
go to a different world and a different land and read about elves and dwarves and dragons but I think when you compare it to cozy, there's almost something that the hard look you have to take and the honesty in something that's cozy because it has to resonate so personally. And it's still escapism, but it's escapism in a way where you feel personally connected in a more intimate way almost because it's not just like good overcoming evil or being the handsomest strongest guy who always gets the girl, which is also always great, but it's like, hey, it's okay to feel insecure sometimes, or it's okay to want
Yeah.
to change your life sometimes, or settle down, or whatever it is. And those can be really difficult things, especially in people today, to face and deal with when you see people getting famous for doing nothing. Like, what am I doing with my life? I could have, gone on YouTube at 16 and been super famous, so it's like all those personal things that people have to face that I think just like you said, right place, right time. It's like the interest in that is just resonating in some way. It's almost like a progression of escapism, if you will.
It feels in a lot of ways like cozy fantasy is more achievable escapism. Like
Yeah.
I don't
Interesting.
imagine
Interesting.
that I'm going to go to Middle Earth, but could like go to the Ren Fair and open a coffee shop and find people who wanted the same vibes as me. And I could be almost there, right? It's
Yeah.
like it's a little bit closer.
Ah, that's a good point.
I don't have to travel quite as far, and so it's easier to believe that journey is possible.
Yeah, I'm not the
Um,
chosen one or
I don't have to
anything.
be hit
Like,
by a
yeah,
truck and isekai'd somewhere. I
yeah,
could actually maybe just find the right people and
yeah,
I could have this.
yeah. I could move. It's possible. It's something I could do. I
I
could
could make
change
a
careers.
fantasy themed coffee shop. I
Yeah,
could,
exactly.
people do these things. This is achievable.
Right. That's true. Yeah, that achievableness of it is really interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way, but it's true. One of the things you've mentioned it a couple times now, and I'm kind of curious about it from the industry side. You give a lot of credit to the cover, and I agree. The cover, the name, the cover, it's a comment as much as your writing, of course, is very good. We judge the book by its cover in this case,
We
and it
do.
and it does a lot of great service to the work. What is the like story behind this cover? How did you come into the secret sauce of the look and feel of Legends and Lattes, especially, but even Brigands and Bread Knives? It's that how did you capture this theme,
Mm,
this style?
Um, I mean, I knew what I wanted from the
Mm,
get-go. And I mean, to a certain extent, it's all part of the same thing. I wrote the blurb first. Like
mm,
this is the
mm,
idea of the book. This is the vibes of the book. This is the way that I would sell it to someone else, myself included. Like this is what this is about. I
mm,
mean, if I can sell myself on it and the concept is communicable, then it's a lot easier to make art for it, right?
mm,
It's a lot easier to come up with a title, to make art. These things all kind of play off of each other. And ultimately, the way that a book transmits itself is like, I want to read that. Why do I want to read that? Because I heard just a little bit about it and it sounded intriguing. It sounded like something I wanted. I saw an image. It immediately matched that in my mind. I got on board. And it's a name that I could remember long enough to look it up on Amazon or Google or whatever when I went back to my house.
mm,
Um, as far as the art itself, I mean, I commissioned a lot of art as a game developer over the years. I knew what I wanted. I know how to commission art. I know how to write it up.
mm,
And so I found an artist that I thought was already doing work that was 98% of what I wanted, which is the most straightforward way to get somebody to do the art that
mm.
you want.
mm,
Um, he did really great painterly work. He was doing a lot of stuff for Wizards, Magic the Gathering, other kinds of artwork. He was doing commissioned artwork that had vibes that went along with it.
mm.
And he did really expressive characters because I didn't want like the current kind of fantasy. We see someone's back looking over a landscape and there's some typography. This is
The
a
cloak,
fantasy. I'm
the
just not
famous
interested in that.
cloak.
I wanted to channel like the Daryl K. Sweet vibes from the 90s from all the tour
Mm,
paperbacks. So
Mm,
that's the vibes. It's like you think of like the Wheel of Time covers.
mm,
Um, and honestly, he did so much work. And it all had that sort of painterly vibe that was character centric, but also had this sort of cool painted European vibes to the background. It's just a specific flavor of fantasy that I think ultimately filtered down and was distilled in things like World of Warcraft and a lot of modern fantasy kind of trades on those vibes. Um,
Oh God, what are you doing?
exactly that,
This
faces
was
included.
some of the great work. I made slight adjustments to resonate with my muse. That would be Charles, but yes, they looked much better before I started plastering Charles's face over it. So head to the YouTube
It's
if you
almost
want to know what we're
blasphemous, yeah.
referring. Yeah, I was like, is Travis gonna be like, oh, you just ruined these beautiful covers that I was talking about? But I couldn't help myself because when I made this. I was very proud, but it's Charles's head on every living
Every,
thing on the
So
on the
including the
Eye of the
horse.
World
when you
cover.
commissioned the cover, Travis, and not to segue from this conversation that I'm absolutely loving, but was this when you self-published?
Yeah.
This was the cover, and then that tour like liked what you had and carried into
Yeah, Tori Ubek liked what I had, and every time I commission art, I always get the commercial rights so that I can use it again. So
right.
I was able to allow them to use it for the republished versions in the US and several of the foreign versions. And the UK
Mhm.
did a different cover because the UK likes, some words and vague imagery around the edges. It's like
Mhm.
the
We
style
got
in the UK.
this one. Uh,
Yeah. And
Travis, yeah.
that's the special edition hardback in the US.
Yeah, this has like my
Hmm. I haven't
background
seen that
is
one. That's nice.
interfering with this now,
Yep.
but it's yeah, this is really pretty. I mean, it's not
It's
to
not
me
good
the
for green screens
iconic.
though, Travis. If we had
No,
to do
it's
the
No, it
bad
isn't.
for
notes,
It just
green
blacked out. You should have
screens.
yeah,
picked
if
up
you,
Bookshops. That one would have worked.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like weathermen
Yeah.
can't show it off or anything,
And I like to maintain like visual continuity. So whenever
Hmm,
I can, I try and own all the art that gets produced. And Tor's been really good, even with the subsequent covers. We're using the same artist, Carson Lowmiller, and
great.
they still allow me to buy out the commercial license. So I still own the rights to all of the cover artwork. And like all the book you just held up, I own the rights
Mhm.
to all of the artwork that was produced for that as well. So all the custom inked chapter headers and whatever, which means that I can grant them to anybody I want to grant them to so that I can have whatever consistency I want as long as a foreign publisher is willing to do it or a book box or whatever.
That's really
It's such
cool.
a wonderful success story of the beauties of self-publishing, right? Like the title was up to you, the artwork was up to you, and you've been able to maintain that through transitioning it
Yeah, I feel really
to
fortunate.
traditional
And
publishing.
working with Tor has been a really good experience. A lot of the things that I worried about just did not come to pass
Mm.
because Tor US has been really fabulous to work with on an editorial front. It's never feels like it's combative at all. Um, they're uh, they're just really a very fabulous partner and very flexible. Again, the fact that they let me buy out the art, and I did the art direction for all the
Yeah,
chapter headers on
Hmm.
the edition that you just held up, and they're like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." Um,
nice.
that's been a very kind of rewarding experience. So
I'm sure they
unexpectedly
love
so.
you too. You came with the whole package, right? They're just like, thank you very much, and we'll put this on bookshelves now for you.
I still do plenty
So,
of work. I mean, they do all kinds of heavy
yo,
lifting on things
sure.
that am not in a position to do. There's all kinds of stuff that I couldn't otherwise do. And then you talk about things like translations, and
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is the whole
Oh, yeah.
area that I would never crack. I would never even bother.
Yeah, all that distribution and logistics stuff is a whole behemoth unto itself. I just wonder how many cases they have where someone has, the title, the cover, like right out of the box, ready to go, like and all that, and then
I
they,
think as
they get
indie
up and
authors
running.
get more and more savvy, there's more and more of it.
For
I mean,
sure.
you look at something like Dungeon Crawler Carl, for
Mm.
instance.
Yes.
There's
Mhm.
more and more people who are successful as indies and are going to have interesting hybrid careers where they're partnering with Trad Pub in ways that are kind of like a la carte. Like, we need a little bit of this, we need a little bit of that. I'm going to
Sure,
take care
sure.
of this. This is my purview. I know what I'm doing.
Right.
And I
Hey,
think that it's just kind of inevitable.
mm.
Yeah, that's true.
Inevitable.
Mm.
I mean, you got so
We're
many
very
talented people.
thankful
Yeah.
to tour. I mean, that's why
Yeah.
we got
Yeah, we love to.
Brigands and Breadknives in our hands. That's how we got you here. So, I mean, we're very lucky too that they work to help podcasters like us get the chance to chat with you and get the chance to read your books a little early and not have
The
to
other
Well, I
thing,
wait
though, you
appreciate
you
it.
also
so
came ready to narrate too. I mean, come
that
on.
helps. Yeah.
I mean, what's that like hiring yourself, or where it's like, I'm gonna do this, And was that something that
For the
was there the
narration?
audiobook? But I'm assuming you made
Yeah, I
the
did the
audiobook as
I
audiobook
well.
as
mean, by
self-pub.
that point,
I sim shipped.
yeah.
So I had an indie audiobook. And so basically they bought out the rights to the audiobook from me because I own the
Right.
publication rights.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
it's just the same audiobook again. And then in the contract for additional books, it's just in there that I have to narrate them.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. That's cool. Yeah, but it's like, we can bring him back, but it's going to be expensive. I mean,
Oh,
They're
he's
like,
expensive.
well,
really
this guy's
And
demanding.
done Cradle, so it's
there's
not
a
going to be
couple
easy to
of
book him.
there's a couple of cool benefits to narrating your own audiobook and writing it, which is that I narrate the audiobook in the last stage of the copy edit before it's been finalized, which means there's always something you find when you read it out loud. Like
Mm,
some
Mm,
quotation mark is missing or a comma, or you find a last minute like continuity error.
true.
So we get this last pass
that's
before everything
interesting.
is locked for print, where we get to shake out any last issues, which I feel kind of lucky to get to do. Because
Mm.
otherwise, you do it later and it's already locked, and you're like, oh no, I'm narrating this now. Can I change it? No, no,
Yeah.
it's already been printed. It's on a boat
Yeah.
coming across the Atlantic right now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
That's
that's true.
that's
Now,
so
Dylan, you had an
true.
interesting question, and I'll let you ask because about the narrative, like how
Oh,
being the narrator was able to inform the writing or vice versa.
yeah, I mean, that's basically what we were wondering was, do you feel like your experience as an audiobook narrator, because you came into this having done a lot of audiobook work, do you
Yeah,
feel like it's altered the way that you write, or do you like hear your
100%.
voice as you're,
Mm,
okay,
100%
yeah,
to
tell us
all.
about that.
So, it's really obvious to me anything I wrote before I was a narrator and after.
Mm,
Um, One of the things that's great about narrating other people's books is that basically you're watching a lot of other people solve problems that you haven't solved yet in a way that you don't pick up on when you're reading it on the page because you don't have to. If you're narrating it, you got to get all the juice out of the fruit, right? There's no
mm,
line you get to
mm,
skim, nothing you don't get to pay attention. If something isn't working quite right, you still have to get out and push and try and make it work. I know what the author's trying to do here. Doesn't really feel that way when I read the words
mm,
aloud, so I can give it a little bit of a zhuzh in my inflection and my delivery to try and get it the rest of the way. So you can really feel both when they are succeeding and when they are struggling. And these are all problems
interesting.
you might eventually encounter, but you would have to write them. So you get to encounter them before you have written them. I mean, the only way to learn to write is to write, right? But
mm,
also you learn an awful lot by reading aloud other people's stuff, including your own.
Mm,
Um, it's just very, very instructive. You learn what matters to you and what doesn't. Like when you feel yourself spacing out and you're like, oh, this is not interesting to me. Why isn't this interesting to me? If you're reading it on the page, you just kind of skim it and you're like, oh, I get to the part that I care about. You don't
yeah.
stop and analyze why didn't that function for me?
Mm,
mhm,
And the same is true if it really, really works. You're like, oh my God, that was one of the best things I ever read. I felt so great reading it out loud. Why? Because you had to
yeah.
engage with it in a
mm,
way you don't otherwise have to engage. So that's really powerfully instructive.
mm,
Um, and it feels like there's a lot of things, especially when we're all learning to write and learning to get better, that we put in our books, not because we actually thought them at the time, but we put them in because we read them somewhere else and we're like, this is a thing that
Mhm.
belongs in a book. I should put
mhm,
it here because this feels like a place where someone would put this. But that's not the same as putting it there because you meant it, right? It's
mm.
like every time you
Mm.
read for the eighth time in a book, he got out of breath, he didn't know he was holding. Like, why did you
I'm
put that in there? It's
yes.
like a mental tick, right? You've
Yes.
internalized that this is a thing that I should like happens in books. It shall happen in mine as well. Um, and once you've had to perform that, it makes you reevaluate why those things are there
Yeah, interesting.
and why you might put them there. So it's like an ongoing writing class. And unfortunately, it's not one that you can recommend anybody else do. Hey, yes, you should go and narrate thousands of hours of somebody else's books.
You
No
should
big
read a
deal.
book
It
aloud,
should be
cover to
so great.
cover.
Just go do
Yeah.
this. It's not good advice to pass on. It is, I think, good in terms of like reading your own stuff aloud because you still find all sorts of issues, but
Mhm.
you're not going to get the same experience I do reading thousands and thousands of hours of other people's stuff.
Mm,
Um, the other thing that happens is that your mental voice gets super, super clear. Like you know
Mm.
exactly what you will sound like when you say a sentence before you have said it. And when you're writing dialogue or you're writing a sentence, there's just a basic like musicality to a sentence, and there's like word
mm.
Mm.
echoes and things that are hard to keep tabs on while you're actively writing, but become easier when you can hear it in your head. So that ends up being super useful.
Mm.
That's a really interesting insight that I guess only
Yeah.
audiobook narrators really have.
Well, and I think a lot of audiobook narrators are probably set up, especially if they care about the written word, to be pretty
Mm,
reasonable writers. And I don't know, maybe as writers, it's worth some time to work on vocal performance just for fun,
hmm.
because I think there are like benefits to be reaped, maybe not on the same scale that I get to extract things from them, but I think it's still useful.
Yeah, I'm no author, but like when, for school or something, when someone reads what you wrote aloud, it is like it's a bit of a horrifying experience. I don't
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
maybe I feel that way, but I'm like, I wrote like that sounds very different when I'm hearing someone else read it back
Mm.
to me than when
yeah.
I wrote it. It's a really interesting
On the
mental
flip side, if they were a
discipline.
professional narrator reading it back to you, you'd probably feel a little bit better about it. You're like, oh,
That's true. That's
that actually
true.
came
That's
out
that
pretty
was my
great.
Yeah.
first mistake. Yeah. I didn't have a
Right. Yes, you
professional
should have had
audiobook
Mr.
narrator.
Miller, our English teacher, reading it. We
Yeah.
needed to bring on Travis or
Yeah.
Stephen Pacey. I know that that uh, I think Joe Abercrombie and Christian Cameron have both said to us like that they'll write something and then they'll hear their audiobook narrator say it, and they're like, that's not really what I was thinking, but that's way
That's
better.
way better.
Yeah.
That's the skill they bring for sure. Yeah, those are some great audiobooks too, for sure.
I narrate Cal Kieran's Shade Clinger series, and he
Mm.
listens in when I record it. But now he hears the voices for the characters, so he has to try and do them while he's writing to make sure that the comedy lands. So he has to like go out on his deck and like actually deliver the comedy aloud in voice, trying to dial in how it's going to sound when it gets narrated, which is like a weird feedback loop. Um,
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really funny. So you basically will, as you're writing, kind of hear yourself how you would be saying
yep.
it.
I know what people sound like. I know what their voices sound like. I know
Mm.
how it will sound when it's said aloud. So when it actually comes time to read it, it's super easy.
Yeah. And then you come full circle and your character's line of dialogue is just, hmm.
Yep,
And you
yep. Well, I
and
know
and
exactly how that
the
should be delivered.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. It's like the musicality of, you want your Cal, of course, I'm referring to from Legends and Lattes and the subsequent books were just like and all the different deliveries of that over. That's how you know you've really gone full circle into the audiobook narrating world where you've distilled it down to not even a word. You're writing the noise.
yep. Well, I
And
mean,
that's
in the end, really, the audio is the real version. Text is
mm,
just like an approximation of what sounds would be, right? That's what a
mm,
comment is. It's like, oh, you're supposed to
Mm.
pause here.
mm,
We have all of these text devices to try and reproduce what audio would sound like, but audio is the real deal.
yeah.
Interesting. Are you a purist who doesn't like when people speed up the audio?
I don't understand it, but I mean, you got to do what you got to do. Everybody doesn't have the same goals with a book. Yeah, I mean, it's like to me, it feels like if I was going to watch Star Wars, would I watch it on 2x speed? Would it make it a better movie? No, these things wouldn't land for me. The experience wouldn't be the same. But people have, different reasons for engaging with books. It's not for me, but at the end, I don't want to yuck anybody else's yums. I don't think it sounds as good. I think you lose something. But if
Yeah.
you don't care about that, it's your book.
Yeah. I may be guilty. We were reading the last, Stormlight Archives, like 60 hours long. I'm like, if I even do 1.2x, I could save, I just do the math in my head like a crazy person. I'm like, if it's 60 hours and I just move 10% faster, like I'm saving 6 hours. I'm doing that crazy math. But I'm like, I get it. When your book's 4 hours long, of course, and it's the author who's the narrator, you give it it's full
Yeah.
flowers, of course. So, well,
Yeah.
I think we have a long ways to go before the 60-hour, Legends
I don't think
book.
I'm gonna
But
hit 60, but the book I'm writing right now just passed 100K words, and it's probably going to be 3 times as long as any of these,
Oh,
unfortunately.
wow.
oh
So
wow, you're expanding.
So,
Is
yes,
it a
different
Legends
genre.
story or is it
It
yeah,
a?
is
to whatever
not.
Oh,
It
okay,
is
extent
okay,
you
not.
okay.
can,
I was gonna say
It
because
that's
is
a
not.
big Legends.
It's I am writing. So I have read so many lit RPGs. I have developed
mm,
opinions. So I'm writing one. I'm writing one the way that I would want to write one,
interesting.
and it's called Four Bastards and a Baby. But it's it's longer because it's a different kind of book. And I'm still coming to grips with exactly how long it is.
Now I noticed you have a little bit of the alliteration, a little bit of the rhythm.
Yeah.
Now's the time to think about these things,
It's still
Travis,
like a, we'll
before
see, nothing has to rhyme and
think
nothing's
about the
alliterative.
international translations now.
Yeah. Yeah. How would they translate bastard? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it sounds like a very interesting premise. And, with your background in, as a developer too, I feel like you would bring, some thoughts to the table.
The funny thing is that I'm not a super crunchy like lit RPG aficionado. I like it if things make sense, but I don't want to read pages of stats. I never thought
Mm.
that was interesting as a game developer either. If people understood how much cheating was going on under the hood in code to make a game feel
Mm.
good, um, it's all smoke and mirrors. It's all like, what am I going to do to make this feel enjoyable? And you will bend and break any rule that you have to in order to achieve that end. So like the system as being a functional thing that we can imagine how it perfectly works underneath, a lot of times that's just not the case. Um, so I don't care as much about that stuff. I still care about, but do I want to spend time with these characters? Am I interested in this? Does it feel like I've already read or seen this 1,000 times? We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. I'm so much trepidation because I read a lot of lit RPG and this is what I want, but does anybody else want it? I don't know.
Right? I know it's interesting. Wow, that's so. I mean, it sounds like you've already gotten kind of swept into it. You're past 1,000 words now, so I'm really
Yeah, it's
curious
about
to
a hundred
see
thousand words in,
100,000
so
words. I'm
that would
sorry, yeah.
be 10 hours of audio-ish
Okay, well, in the world of
thus
fantasy,
far.
that's still
It's not
digestible.
much.
That's not
It'll be
much.
160 to 180 probably when it's done. I'm
Mm.
almost to the two-thirds mark. So
Well, there you go. That's exciting. Well, we look forward to that. But before then, we have so much else to look forward to in the more immediate future, right? November 11th,
they'll just talk about
depending on,
everything but Brigands and Breadknives. I'm
yeah,
sure Tori will
whenever that,
appreciate that.
whenever this airs, it will be close enough to November 11th. That's any day now. You can read Brigands and Breadknives, the third book in the Legends series. And yeah, I mean, we had such a pleasure reading it, so thank you for sharing it with us, and thank you for, sharing your time with us today. It was really appreciative. There's a lot of, you got me a lot of thinking here now about, I like this achievable escapism piece. I'm still kind of hooked on that. I
Mm.
don't know. I think you're onto something there.
Travis, while we still have you, this didn't come up organically, so I just want to ask you a question that I've been
Okay.
thinking about.
Ooh, I have one
So
too
we
after this.
are okay. We are a clean podcast, so I can't say this word, but there's
Got it.
a four-letter word that starts with F, the classic
Yep.
F-bomb.
Yep. The
Um,
first word in the book.
this is the first word in the book, and it does not let up from there. The F-bomb appears 79 times in this 336 page book, according to my Kindle search of it. So that is an average of one F-bomb per 4.25 pages. So hearing that, your instant reaction, is that more than you thought, less than you thought, right about
Oh,
where
that
you were
sounds like
thinking?
Fern. That sounds like Fern. Sounds like Fern. It's just punctuation for her. Yeah, well, and I thought about it for a while. I thought about like, do I need to use, when I wrote bookshops, I was like, do I need to come up with like a fake swear? Do I need to like make fake goblin swears
That's
or
the
something and come
Sanderson
up? And I
move.
tried it out and I was like, this is the worst. This feels totally inauthentic in my fantasy world.
Yeah.
Um, I, there's some people who are not going to be okay with it, and that's fine, which is why I put the word first. If you can open the first page and be like, this book
Then
is not for
close
me,
it.
I'll let you figure it out immediately. Um,
Yes.
but at the end of the day, I mean, these characters, I want them to feel like actual people. I want them to feel like you believe that this person is who they are. And
Right.
the people that I know who are profane, they're not profane to be mean. They're not profane to be cruel to other people. And I don't think Fern is. She's not berating people and calling them names. This is just the best word that she had to articulate the thing that she wants to articulate. And it's a very flexible word. And as someone who is a bookseller and appreciates words, she really appreciates the utility of this word. It's just authentic to her. And the number of people who sell books who have told me, God, Fern is just like me, just validates this for me that I was on the right track. So apologies to anyone who it offends, but it feels authentic to Fern, so I just had to do it.
And hey, you don't hide it. It's the first word in the prologue. You don't get far before you have to decide if
Yeah.
it's going to be for you or
Well,
not.
and it's not like anybody else swears that way in the book because their characters wouldn't. It just
Right.
happens to be Fern.
Yeah, there's characters that have creative language, but you're not
Yeah, it's not the
translating
same.
it, so you can just assume. Yeah, exactly. So you said you made some fake swears. Do you remember what your attempts at fake swears were? Because I just
The
go
Well,
back
Zill
to
got to
Robert
storms.
use a few
Jordan,
of them.
who's
The-
Zill
like
got to
blood
use
and
a few
bloody
of them. So
ashes.
like Luffing Shunks and stuff, they were like goblin swears.
Oh,
So
right,
Zill
right.
got to use them
Oh, there you go.
because she speaks in Goblinese and Fern knows all the goblin swears. So a
There
few
you
of them got
go.
to
Mm.
be used.
There you go. See, so it was useful. It
They
was
were
well
not
thought of
wasted.
effort. Yeah, not wasted. I love that. And I have one random question too. I was wondering, as such a proponent of cafes and bookshops and things like that, what is your go-to coffee
Mm.
shop order?
Um, I mean, if I'm going to take the time and make sure that it gets made, I like a mezzo mezzo, which a lot of people don't know, but it's basically some raw sugar steamed with a shot
Hmm.
and with basically two shots, a little bit of hot water and a little bit of steamed milk. So it's got like a
Mm.
little bit of the creaminess of a latte. It's kind of like an
Oh.
Americano. It's just got a little bit of sweetness. It's that's perfect for me.
Got it. Got it. So is it like is the mo milk a foam on top, or it's like a
Just a
latte
foam
where
on
it's
top, just a foam
okay?
on top, but it's got kind of like a little bit of that creaminess or
It's got some sugar in it as well. Oh,
and a little bit
I,
of sugar, a little bit
Mm.
of raw sugar that you steam first.
wow. Okay.
Anyway,
In water or in the milk?
you use your milk steamer. So you put a little
Oh,
raw
you just
sugar in the
straight
butter and
up put the steam
you
on the
jet the
sugar.
steam in it and you steam
Whoa.
the sugar.
Yeah, I used to
And then it's
work in a
basically,
coffee shop, so I'm trying to.
yeah.
I never heard that.
Yeah,
We weren't a
Charles is going to be
particularly good
making one
coffee
of
shop,
these pretty
so we,
soon
we, we
after
weren't a
hearing this.
fancy coffee shop by
There's a
any
specific
means.
barista that turned me on to this, and I was like, oh yeah, this is exactly what I want. This is all the things I want in my coffee. Nothing
Wow.
in
Mm.
excess. It's got enough caffeine. It has a little bit extra water so I'm not done drinking it in 3 minutes.
Right.
Just a little bit of the milk and a hint of sweet.
Mm.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to attempt that one day. Just steaming
I'm
sugar. Who would have thought? But
Knowing Charles, I'll be enjoying that with him before too long. Next time I see him, probably. But Travis,
I think that the game with the steam is just that it mixes with the coffee a little
right,
faster
right, right.
or something. I don't know.
Interesting. Interesting.
Travis, we've been so honored to have you on. We've had so much fun chatting with you on here. Last question for you is just where can folks find you as they look forward to Brigands and Breadknives coming out November 11th? Where can they find you on the interwebs? Where can they keep track of you?
TravisBaldree.com. I'm Travis Baldree on all of the socials. Blue Sky, I think, is where I'm at most of the time these
Okay.
days.
He's even got the
And
domain. That's awesome.
I will be on tour from, I think, like the 9th through like the 24th of November, going
Mm.
around the country with a couple stops in Canada too. So
Oh,
at some point, I'm sure we will publish that. So if you want to come say hi and you're within shouting distance,
yes.
love to see
We'll
you.
take a look.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. All right, folks. Like I said, Brigands and Bread Knives coming out November 11th. We had an awesome time with it, and we're sure you will too. And Travis, thank you again so much for coming on. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you both so much. I had a great time.
All right. Thanks, Travis. Have a good one, everybody.